here right in the front, in front of me. If you haven't had a chance already, before we finish here today, make sure that you sign in or share a thought or a memory of Coach Spencer for the family. And there's also a QR code on the table here, and that is for the Friends of Wrestling. It's a donation Venmo. If you're so inclined, they were very helpful with all this, and those funds from today are intended to be in a scholarship in Coach Spencer's name for senior wrestlers as they graduate. So that's what we're hopeful to do with those donations. Just kind of mark it in the Venmo that that's the purpose for it or the reason for it. Again, if you're willing and able to do that, that would be great. Couple of thank yous, and I'll give you kind of our plan, our schedule of events for today, because we're not staying in the cafeteria. There's wrestling going on in the gym. Spence would have wanted us to get down there, so we're gonna get down there at some point too. Thank you for the breakfast and the food provided by the Spencer family. Please make sure that you have some of that or take some of it with you so that they don't have to lug any of it out of here. After we're done with some acknowledgments and honoring here in the cafeteria, as I mentioned, there's a quad wrestling match going on with Manchester, Passaic, and DePaul in the high school gym, which is a short distance from here. So the plan is to move from here. We have a bagpiper to kind of lead a procession into the gym after the first matches are done, prior to the start of the second matches. Once we're led into the gym by the bagpiper, there will be an announcement honoring Coach Spencer, a moment of silence, and then as he would have wanted it, we'll stop making a fuss about him and get to the wrestling again, get back to the action. And at that point, you can stay and support the wrestling team, or you can come back here, continue the fellowship. We have the cafeteria till 11 a.m. So what you were doing before I started talking, you can continue to come back here and keep doing, after we're done in the gymnasium with the honoring there. The special thanks are needed and deserved, and we're happy to give them to the Pequannock Township High School administration. Especially Athletic Director Brian Silipina in the back. He was instrumental in helping us set this up and get this going today. We also have Principal Rich Hazler here with us this morning, so thank you very much to Brian and Rich for making this event possible and allowing us to do this at the high school, where he was such a successful head coach and such a long-time teacher. And don't forget, he was still coaching track right up until his passing. So thank you to Brian and Rich especially for having it here. If you wouldn't mind, give them a round of applause if you would. Yeah. They're not in here with us now because they're in the gymnasium, but the aforementioned Friends of Wrestling, a booster club that Coach Spencer helped get started with so many of the supportive families, back in the late 70s, early 80s, and that booster club is still thriving and flourishing. I know he would be so happy to see that, but Friends of Wrestling really helped make this happen also, and especially Clint Rumley and Sue Dolan, who I said are in the gym, but thank you to them for all their efforts with this. And then Steve Beloff and Charlie Cunningham. This was really a labor of love for both of them. They deserve the lion's share of credit for making this happen today. The slideshow, with Michelle and Paul and Steve, hours of time and effort spent in there. We had multiple virtual meetings. Steve Beloff really is a taskmaster when he, has something in mind that he wants to get accomplished. So I don't know, we had 5 or 6 virtual meetings on the way to this, and he always had an agenda. He had minutes, from each of them. He was very official, very organized, very formal. But Steve couldn't be with us here today. He lives in Florida. He had knee replacement surgery earlier this week. He was a bit of a slave to insurance in that regard. He really wanted to be here. We're sorry he couldn't be here with us, but this doesn't happen without him. And Charlie Cunningham, of course, too, was instrumental in making all this happen. And more on Michelle and Paul in just a minute. So many other alumni wrestlers, soccer players, track athletes, students, former colleagues, teachers, others who shared their stories, pictures, memories. It's just a testament to the man that we have all of you here again after having honored, it was 2 years ago, I had to look it up, I thought it was last January, it was actually 2 Januaries ago, where Coach was honored as an inductee in the Pequannock Wrestling Hall of Fame. And again, a lot of repeat customers from that night, and that was such a great event. So it's great to see everybody here, and we're all here for for the same reason, for the same man. It's not easy, I have to tell you, to put your thoughts about a man who you respected and admired so much on paper. It's even tougher to do that when you know that so many others here and others not here today feel the same way about him. Throw in the emotions involved with those words on paper, and I'll ask you to bear with me as I do my best to pay respects and reverence to a man of legendary status to all of us. If you were here 2 Januaries ago for Coach Spencer's induction into the Pequannock Wrestling Hall of Fame, please do not hold me to the standard that was set by my aforementioned good friend and classmate, teammate, Charlie Cunningham. He set the bar for honoring Coach Spencer very high. I hope to do half as good a job as he did 2 Januaries ago. I'd like to, of course, acknowledge and honor Coach's family. His wife Adelaide, his daughter Michelle with husband George, and son Paul, not Michelle's son, Coach Spencer's son Paul, and Michelle's sons Logan and George. We also have Coach Spencer's sister Tawny here, his brother Porter and his daughter Ryan, and they're lifelong friends of Craig and Adelaide, Irene and Richie, and Carmela and Jean. So really I want to thank you for sharing Coach with us. The coaching vocation, when it's done correctly, is a very time-consuming one. And a coach spends a lot of time with other people's children, if they're doing it right. And Coach Spencer certainly did it right. Time that isn't at home is in a practice room, in a gymnasium, at weigh-ins, at a seating meeting, at tournaments, on a bus. There's a lot that goes into doing coaching right. And it's a lot of sacrifice for the coach, but even a greater sacrifice for the family. So it would be remiss of all of us if we didn't thank you for your sacrifice and for sharing Coach Spencer with all of us, because we greatly benefited from his time with us. And you can't be in 2 places at once as much as coaches try. And so we know that time he spent with us was time he wasn't able to spend with you. Thank you for sharing your husband, your dad, your grandfather, with all of us. That is much appreciated. Please give a round of applause. Going to get into, Coach was the head coach at Pequannock for 13 years, taught here for over 30. But we have, fortunately with us, a couple of members. When he moved on from Pequannock, he went to Kane College and had Kane competing on the regular with his alma mater, Montclair State, Glassboro State, and Trenton State, and made them a powerhouse in the NJAC. So there are a couple members, I know I saw Joe Dasty for sure, and I apologize if I missed some other names, but thank you to the Kane College wrestling guys for being here. After Kane, he went to Lakeland and had a very successful stint as the head coach at Lakeland High School. And I know there's more than a few Lakeland wrestlers with us today too, so thank you for being here. And then, as he's fond of reminding Steve Beloff, Charlie, and I, Coach spent 18 years as the assistant at West Milford, his longest tenure at any single coaching spot. And his former teammate, who they then went head-to-head with while the head coach of Pequannock, and Mike Blakely was the head coach at West Milford. And then they became, while they were still colleagues, they were competitors. But then Spence started coaching with Blake at West Milford. As I said, from 2008 until last year in the Region Wrestling Tournament, he was still at it coaching. Mike Blakely was himself an All-American at Montclair State. He's somebody that is near and dear to my heart because Coach Spencer called Mike and said, I know a guy who wants to be an assistant wrestling coach. He wrestled for me. I think he'd do a good job for you. and that set me up for the rest of my life, honestly. That, you know, one gesture, that one phone call that Spence made for me, and Blake took his recommendation. So I would like to call up at this time Mike Blakely from West Milford for some words about Coach Spencer.
Thank you, Vinny. This is true. Coach Spencer said there was a young man who needed to be the coach, wanted to coach wrestling. And I met with Dennis and I saw him. I said, oh boy, I said, this young guy. I said, we're in an open gym. We were in an open gym. We had girls basketball gym. Well, everybody coming by. I said, this guy's, the girls would be going crazy over there. We'd go watching. And I called him Vinny from that point on. And we named a move. We have a move after him, Vinny. Denis Nelson was a great asset to our program. And again, just by the word of Craig saying, I got a guy. He had a great guy. He knew how to evaluate talent, and was a great friend of mine. Now, how did I meet Spence? Well, I'm going to go back about 50 years ago, I'd say. And one of my high school alumni, the first time I met him too, was with Craig. And they walked in, and I said, who are this guy? Well, that's Nabil, Ahmed's brother, and that's Spencer. I said, Spencer. These two guys were flying around the room like flies. And I'm there like, well, I was new to wrestling. I knew nothing about wrestling when I stepped on the mat as a freshman. And these guys were tossing people all over the mat. And they were my size. Well, not this size now, but they were small. I like that size. And I was just amazed. And then years later, I got to coach against Craig. And he was here at Pequannock. I was at West Milford as an assistant and as a head coach. And then eventually had him at Lakeland too. And eventually he was with us for 18 years and a great impact on us. And we refer to you guys as our boys. You're our men. You're men now. You're so to be our boys. And I always had to hear about a Cunningham, a Beloff, a Nelson, a Trelizzi, all these names from Pequannock. I said, you know, we got kids here too. And then it was the Chalkleys, there was Fazio, and all this. Then it was Dossies and so. These guys said, hey, you know, we got kids here, right? But he did, and he had a big impact on a lot of our kids. And like I said, if you think about what he dealt with futures, right? You out there took a lot from him and learned a lot from him and become great through him. All right, and that's his legacy. He's going to live on with us. Now, I've had the great honor to know Spence, his wife, and his family, and Paul and Michelle, and his grandson. I now have the honor to coach his grandson in wrestling. All right, that's great for me. He's been, you know, dedicated husband, loyal husband, and father, and grandfather, and father-in-law, and we disagreed on a lot of things we can sometimes, but we were always friends, and we never let that get between us. But Spence was always there when we needed him, always willing to stay with the kids and help out. The one thing I couldn't get him to do is wear black and gold. He had to wear that blue and gold. And I'm their Spence. Here, I give you these things. You're supposed to wear black and gold. You're here in West Milford. No, he was true to you guys. He loved this school. He was dedicated to young men and women here at Pequannock, and that was his lifestyle. We at West Milford, the boys came up with a little T-shirt. Charlie, do you have it there?
It's right up there, Coach, right behind. Yep.
And I gotta show this. But there it is. So people out there, there comes some kid on my team comes and hey, Coach, are they angel's wings or is that a mustache? I said they're both. Right? Again, if you've known Spence, I mean, even up to his last few days, last year, coming in, going through treatment, he says, Spence, what the hell are you doing here? Go the hell home. He says, no, give me something to do. You know, he was always there for us, for the rest of it. And then when the technology came in, and still, Spence, you go online, it's in the cloud. In the cloud, where do I find it? I said, just go ask. You do it. I said, better yet, go ask your grandkids. They'll help you. So he did adjust, and he found his way through track wrestling and stuff like that. And us old timers are, always in the books and having things written down. He found his way around it, and he maneuvered it quite well. But the last day I saw him was the day before he passed, and I was up there that morning. He was breathing heavy, and he was unconscious, and I go, grabbed his arm, Spence, you still have that drag? And his eyes fluttered. I mean, they didn't open, but they just fluttered, and I just knew, he knew we were there, his family was here, and we were with him. A great man, a great coach, right? And it's an honor to be a colleague with him, and we love you, Spence.
Thank you.
Thank you, Blake. Coach Mike Blakely, everyone. I made the mistake very early in my coaching time at West Milford. The uniform up there was work boots and flannels, and I wore black Reeboks and a cardigan. So the popular movie at the time was My Cousin Vinny, and I've been Vinny ever since. What Blake didn't mention about the shirts too is on December 23rd, West Milford hosted their duels tournament, the Greg Kojaki duels, and they honored Coach Spencer before the wrestling started on that day. And I know Charlie Cunningham was there, and he said they knocked it out of the park. They did an absolutely beautiful job of acknowledging and honoring Coach Spencer. So thank you to West Milford, and thank you to Mike Blakely for for all of that. You could certainly, when it comes to Coach Spencer, use the term wrestling lifer, and it would be fitting and appropriate. Starting his high school career in Half Hollow Hills High School, and then moving on to wrestle at the Merchant Marine Academy, then to Montclair State, where he too was an All-American wrestler, and then he competed for the New York Athletic Club, continued to compete nationally and even internationally with the New York Athletic Club, and did that well into his coaching time as well, still competing early on in his coaching career. He was the head coach at Union County College after graduating from Montclair for 1 year, and then fortunately for many of us, became the teacher and the head wrestling coach at Pequannock Township High School for 13 years. Had great success here, moved on to Kane College, had great success there, then to Lakeland, and then he spent the past 18 years as an assistant coach at West Milford, as we heard. So over 60 years involved in the sport as a competitor and as a coach. Obviously, much more of those 60 years were spent coaching than they were competing. That's just the nature of most sports. So in that regard, you could say Craig Spencer was a coaching and teaching lifer. And Mike Blakely just alluded to that, even as recently as this time last year, was still going to practices, going to matches. He was leading, guiding, advising, steering, helping young men and women for 5 decades after his graduation from Montclair State. Over 50 years fully immersed in the noble and honorable profession of teaching and coaching right up until his passing. The amount of lives he impacted, the life lessons that he imparted, they are really impossible to measure. Good teaching is hard to measure. You know what it looks like, you know how it feels, but it can be hard to explain why someone is a good teacher. But one of the things that you would have to say, good teachers care. And that was certainly a quality possessed by Craig Spencer of his students and his student athletes. Good coaches are a little easier to measure because we keep score. And there are winners and there are losers. And by all accounts, Coach Spencer was an excellent coach, not only because his won-loss records, his titles won, his Coach of the Year honors say he was certainly a winner, a competitor, he was intense, he was driven. He always sought out the toughest competition to go against. That's one of the things I think we all very clearly remember. He would put together a tough schedule, and we didn't appreciate it much at the time. Honestly, I know we would go to Half Hollow Hills. I think our freshman and sophomore year win the tournament by 100 points. So our junior year, we're going 100 at Central, who's a top 10 team in the state with other top teams there. And we're like, thanks, Spence. We kind of liked going to Half Hollow Hills, but here we are going 100 at Central. My sophomore year, Ridge High School wins the Group 2 state title. In the summertime, we're going to the Wayne Boys and Girls Club, and he, is so excited to tell us, I got Ridge on the schedule for the next 2 years. We're figuring out who's going to wrestle the Dursos, who's going to wrestle Welch, who's going to wrestle Randy Ito. Funny part of that, though, is my junior year, 1987, Tim Burklow, one of the captains of the team here, we wrestled Ridge High School in the gym right here, defending Group 2 champs, and we beat them 30-28, and it was Coach Spencer's 100th coaching win. He knew what he was doing. The next year we went to Ridge and we beat him 31-28. So, for all of our angst and worry about, what Coach was doing, he knew exactly what he was doing. And he always sought out the toughest teams to put on the schedule. His good friend Mike DiPiano at St. Benedict's, always on the schedule. His friend Mike Blakely, West Milford, always on the schedule. Del Val, countless others, Caldwell, Milburn, so on and so forth. Spence was an incredible technician, and his ability to teach those techniques, not only to wrestlers, but his throwers in track too, which he did for many, many years. That was a coaching gift that was given to countless of us. His ability to impart his technical expertise, in addition to teaching you how to work hard, how to compete, how to win. Now, I didn't know exactly where to put this in my comments, but I know that I had to include it, so forgive me, there really isn't a good segue, but I just felt it was necessary to mention. He had a great laugh. Coach Spencer had a great laugh, and I'm sure you can, in your mind, hear it right now that I've said that. I didn't notice it as much during the season as I did, once the season was over, because he was, pretty focused and intense, as I said. And I also noticed it a lot more after high school and into adulthood. But I would love when he or someone else would tell a story and it would get him laughing, because it made you laugh. It was contagious. He had a great sense of humor. He was an entertaining storyteller as well. In closing, before we move on to the gymnasium, what made him a great coach and teacher, in my opinion, is that he compelled you to work harder than you ever thought you could. He compelled you to achieve more than you ever thought you could. And those were things that you kept forever and brought into your personal and professional lives. Work ethic, motivation, perseverance, preparation, teamwork, sacrifice. Those were qualities that he helped bring out in all of us when we were young men in high school or in college, that you then had forever. And how well did those things serve you, during the course of the rest of your life? How do you thank somebody for being able to do that? What a gift it is to be able to do that. Wins, championships, those are important things, but those didn't matter to him as much as all of us did. What mattered to him is everyone gathered in this room and people who couldn't be here with us as well. And we all knew that and could feel that, and that's why we're all here. He cared greatly, he cared deeply, not only at practice or at a match, way beyond that. Decades beyond that. He cared about us way more than wins or losses or any of his own success. That's not a good coach, that's a great coach, and that's a great person too. So just in closing, when we honored Coach 2 years ago with the Hall of Fame induction for Pequannock Wrestling, last year in January, he was inducted into the Morris County Wrestling Association Hall of Fame at Mount Olive High School during the county tournament. A county tournament that he helped create, that he helped begin. He was a pioneer in that way as well. And he is currently being considered for induction into the National Wrestling Hall of Fame in the New Jersey chapter. They have all of his information, all of his credentials. He's more than deserving. We're very confident that, you know, that's a matter of time and that's going to happen, and that he'll be inducted posthumously. So just wanted to give you that update, and I thank you all for your attention, for attending, and we're going to kind of sit here, enjoy each other's fellowship as we were earlier, and then when it's time, we'll make our way down to the gymnasium for an honoring and an acknowledgement there, and from there, you can stay in the gym, you can come back to the CAF. Michelle would like you to take a bagel at least with you, one or two. So thank you everyone again for being here and for sharing today about Coach with his family, his friends, and you know, and those who he cared about the most and those who cared about him the most. So thanks very much.